Hello and welcome to Inside Homebrewing. I'm Jay Thomas, and this is a oatmeal stout I brewed up a while back. It's been in the bottle now for about 6 weeks. Give this a taste. Oh yeah, it smells good. Oh, that's good stuff. Anyway, what's going on today? It's National Learn to Homebrew Day. So I'm going back to basics. I found a recipe of mine from about 30 years ago, and I'm going to be brewing that up again. It's just a very simple. Going to use basic equipment, basic ingredients. Going to be making an kind of an American style stout beer. So on Learn to Homebrew Day, it's going to be, I'll just go through step by step some of the basic equipment you need, and just a very basic way to brew up a batch of beer. So for equipment, probably if you're a first time brewer, for equipment you're going to need, you're going to want a carboy. Got a carboy there, or a just a glass carboy, 5-gallon glass carboy. Got a 6-gallon fermentation bucket and or a bottling bucket. Some of the other stuff, hose. You're going to need some various hoses and some a funnel. Oops. Funnel is always a good idea to have for putting the yeast into the fermenter. Need a few different types of stoppers if you're using a carboy. Going to need some stoppers. Going to need a stir spoon. For now, we're just going to be using a couple of these boil kettles. Going to just be heating up the grains in that, and heating up some sparge water in that, and going to also boil in that. That's not going to hold 5 gallons of beer wort, but on something like this, what we can do is just add water after the fact into the fermenter, and go from there. And then you're also going to need some type of wort chiller. It's not necessary, but it makes it a lot easier because you want to pitch that yeast as quickly as possible. We want to cool down that beer and get that yeast pitched right away. So anyway, here's just the basic equipment. A couple pots. You'll need some water, whether that's tap water or I always use Eldorado spring water. If it is tap water, you may want to get rid of the chlorine. Not totally necessary. And or you may just filter it. This water I'm going to be using spring water and adding a little bit of adjusting it with some gypsum. But anyway, so yeah, so just a couple pots. Oh, you're also going to want a hydrometer. Show you how that works a little later on. Bottle capper, thermometer, and like I said, here's a fermentation lock and a stopper for that carboy. Then stuff you have laying around the house, you know, measuring spoons, measuring cups, different stuff like that. And here's all my ingredients. Got that all ready to go, just about. So as far as the ingredients go, the original recipe here, it is 5 pounds dark malt extract. That's the syrup. So I got 5 pounds of syrup in here, dark malt extract syrup. Also 4.5 pounds of plain dark dried malt extract syrup. Oh, some more of the equipment, hop socks, and a grain bag. Anyway, got the 4.5. There's a 3-pound bag. There's a 1-pound bag. Then I measured this out. There's also 1 pound of dry malt extract in there. And the hops, I'm going to be using 2 ounces of, let me see what it says here. On the hops, it's 2 ounces of cluster hops for the boil. Got those whole leaf hops. I like those the best. And also in the boil is going to be 1 ounce of Tettnanger hops. Those are Those are pellets, hop pellets. They're not whole leaf, so we're going to put all the hops inside of a couple of hop bags here. And then for the finish hops, in the last 10 minutes of boil, we're going to be using 1 more ounce of the Tettnanger hops. Those will be in a separate bag by themselves. And here's the yeast. Instead of using a yeast package, I saved this yeast from before. It's basically going to be about the same thing. This may be a little bit more yeast and a little bit stronger. We'll get that going here also. And what else? Oh, and the Whirlflac tablets. It's basically Irish moss. It's just put into a tablet, half of those, in the last 5 minutes of boil. And I also have some Y yeast beer nutrient I'm going to be adding. That wasn't on the original, but I always like to add a little bit of the nutrient on my beers. And on the front side, on the mash, I'm going to be adding 2 teaspoons of gypsum and a half teaspoon of baking soda. So and then the other ingredients is we're going to be soaking this. We're going to be adding this, putting this in some water and heating that up. So that's going to be, that right there is, let me see, 1 pound of crystal malt at 75 Lovibond, 1/2 pound of roasted barley, and 1/2 pound of black patent malt. So what we're going to do with this is going to be in 2 gallons of water. We're just going to heat up the water till it starts to boil, shut it off, leave it sit for about a half hour or so, just so it can suck up all the flavor off of those grains. It's going to go a long ways on this stout beer. So that's real simple. I'll show you how all this works, and I'm going to just add some spring water into the boil kettle right now and get mashing these grains. Real simple, real easy to make beer at home, inside home brewing. Here we go. So now in the bigger brew kettle, first thing I'm going to want to do is measure out 2 gallons of water. Just fill up this pitcher a couple times. There we go, 2 gallons. And then I'm going to do the addition of some gypsum and baking soda. First time brewing, you don't really need to mess with adjusting your water. You know, you try not to complicate things. You sure can, but not necessary to make a real good beer. This is just a little added. There's a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm going to use. Going to be using 2 teaspoons of gypsum. If I have 2 teaspoons. If not, close enough. No, I'm not going to sweat it. Okay, there's 1. Yeah, you got 2. 2 teaspoons. Plop that right in there. Stir it in, get that all dissolved, and crank up the heat. Got the heat going. None of these grains have enzymes in them, so it's not, you're not going to be with just these grains, it's not going to be converting any starches to sugars. So what all we're getting out of these grains is the flavor. There's going to be some nice sweetness with the crystal malt, and we're going to get some nice burnt and roasty, chocolatey, and coffee-like flavors from the roasted barley and the black malt. So just drop that in there, stir it around, make sure there's no clumps of grain inside there, so everything's all nicely soaking in there. Gonna slowly heat that up. Then once just before it starts to boil, I'm gonna shut it off. I probably don't want it to boil, but just to get it hot enough, and then it's gonna steep for a while. So while that strike water is heating up, I decided I'm going to use one of the big hop bags, and one little one with the 2 ounces of leaf hops. It's a lot. Like if you had a boil kettle that had a spout on the bottom, put a bazooka screen on there, and I would just leave the whole hops out of a bag. But for this one, I'm going to put all the whole hops inside of the bag, along with the pellet hops. And then, like I said, there'll be a separate bag of the pellet hops that go in at the end of the boil there. So get those dumped in here. Oh, the smell is just wonderful. These are cluster hops. Alpha is 8.3%. So I got that. I put the recipe, transferred the recipe to a Brewer's Friend. It's a software for homebrewers. Does a bunch of calculations for you. So there we go, got that. A lot of nice hops. Oh yeah, it smells good. And then the 1 more ounce of Tettnanger hops. The alpha, let's see what the alpha is on these. 3.7. These are nice, mild, real floral type of hop. Oh yeah, that smells different. Not as strong smelling, and it's got a more earthy smell to it. Dump that in there. Alright, just tie this off, and that one will be ready to go. And now we'll just, on this one, for the last 10 minutes of boil, let me see what it says here. Is it 10 minutes? Oh, 10 minutes, yeah, last 10 minutes. So what I'm going to be doing is adding this along with my yeast nutrient and the Whirlflack tablets, the Irish moss. The Irish moss is going to give it clarity, gets rid of any chill haze, like you cool off you put your beer in the fridge. On homebrews, they'll have a chill haze to them sometimes. Try to avoid that. You're not really going to be able to tell on a dark beer like this anyhow, but I just automatically always use Irish moss or the Whirlflack tablets, which are made of Irish moss and maybe something else. I'm not sure what it is. So that gets a half a tablet. I already got one busted out from last time. So that gets a half a tablet. And then the yeast nutrient blend. The yeast nutrient blend, we use a half a teaspoon of that. So I'll just get this all measured out. There we go. So these are all ready. That's heating up. I'll check the temperature. There's where your thermometer comes in. See what the temperature is. We're at about 150 degrees right now. Give that a quick stir and take a temperature reading again. I just want it just under boiling, and then I'm going to let it sit for about I don't know, 20 minutes or so, 20-30 minutes, just so it can extract all the goodness from these grains. And then while that's just steeping, I'm going to use this other brew kettle, heat up a gallon of water, maybe a little more than a gallon, about 1.5 gallons of water, and get that up to about 180 degrees, and then I'm going to be rinsing off the grains. Show you how we do all that. It's real easy. All right, I just shut off the heat. It was just right about 200 degrees. Give it a little stir. And now I'm going to let it sit for about, I don't know, 20-30 minutes. And soak up some of that goodness. In the meantime, I'm going to put some water in here. About 1.5 gallons of water in there as sparge water for those grains. Heat that up to about 180 degrees. So I have the sparge water is at 182 degrees. Get that shut off. Move that over. Another piece of equipment you're going to want is a some kind of strainer. I mean, if you're making your beer this way, you know, using specialty grains just to heat up. Some people will cold steep them. I've never done that. I don't know how well it comes out. Worth a try sometime. So just take the bag of grains. And just let them drain, let it drain all back into the brew kettle. I'm going to slowly, try not to squeeze that out, but I'm going to slowly pour the sparge water over the top of those grains and see what kind of volume of water we have. We may have to add a little bit more water to it and get the boil going. So just leave that sit for a couple minutes just so it can drain some more of the wort. Leave it like that, and here in a couple minutes I'll slowly pour the sparge water over the top of those grains. Try to extract as much of the flavor out of there as I can. So I got about 1.5 gallons of water in here, so just slowly pour some of that over the top of this. Just do that several times. I'll get the last of that poured in there. Let that run through. I'm going to leave it sit for a few minutes just to let it all drain through as much as possible. Maybe shake it around. Like I said, I don't want to squeeze it out of there. Maybe tannins, I don't know. So I'll just leave it alone. I'll just let it do its thing for a few minutes and drain out of there. And then I'll start the boil. So I had a, 2 gallons of original sparge water plus 1.5 gallons. Looks about right. Probably could add a little bit more before I start the boil. But I got to make room, leave room. You got to always remember the volume. I need to leave room for that 5 pounds of liquid extract and 4.5 pounds of dry malt extract. So that's going to bring the volume way up. So actually, I think I'll just leave it alone. I think I've got it pretty good right here. We did lose a little bit of volume into the grains. You know, you'll never get that back, but that's all right. So we're just under 15 quarts right now. So if you've never brewed before, you don't want to really cover this up because this sweet wort could boil over. So just crank up the heat, let it go, and once it starts to boil, then I'm going to slowly add the extracts to that. Then bring it back up to a boil again, and then add the hops. So that's just now starting to boil. Try not to have a boil over. Hopefully the volume is low enough. And start adding the extracts. Turn that down a little bit. There we go, there's 1.5 pounds. Got a lot more to go. Get that back up to a boil and add some more. Alright, that started boiling again with 1.5 pounds in there. I got 3 pounds to add here. Very, very careful not to boil over. Get that dissolved in there. Keep stirring. I may have left a little bit too much liquid in this for this size of pan, or for this size of pot. We'll see. So now just get the rest of this added in there, and then I still have 5 pounds dry malt, or the liquid malt extract. That's 4.5 pounds of the dry. Volume's going to be right maxed out. We'll hope for the best. No boil over so far. Alright, so that's all in there and boiling. Here comes the fun part. Got the liquid extract. 5 pounds. Gonna add another quart. Or, well, yeah, it looks like about a quart bottle. Almost full. To our volume. They're going to be totally maxed out. And I have to add the hops. Hopefully it won't boil over. I turned the heat down a little bit. So then the trick is you won't want to rinse that out. Don't want to leave all that goodness in there. Just take some of that hot wort. Dump it inside there and shake it around. There we go. Try to rinse out the inside of this a little bit. It's pretty hot, so it's kind of hard to do. I'm going to call that good right there. Now is when you really have to be careful. We've got a high volume. Don't want it to boil over. Turn the heat down a little bit. Just get that back to a boil again now, without boiling over. So I got that back up to a boil again, as you can see. It's rocking and rolling pretty good. So now when I add the hops, that's going to act as a lid. So you got to watch it once again. Be very careful that it doesn't boil over. Get those dunked right down in there. There we go. Think it'll be okay? Maybe. It's going to boil for 50 minutes. Add more hops. Boil 10 more minutes after that. and it's done. We're going to end up with about 4 gallons. I'll have to add another, maybe another gallon into the fermenter. I'll set the timer here right now. So the alarm just went off. So now I got the Whirlflack tablet and the beer nutrient, along with the finish hops. So I'll just dump those right in there. Those are in the hop bag, and the nutrient and the Whirlflack can go right in. Doesn't need to be in a hot bag. Stir that around and let it continue boiling. Whoa. Another 10 minutes now. I'll shut the heat off. And it'll almost be done. Then it's time to cool it off after that. So it's just about done boiling. Got another minute or so to go. But anyway, it looks like I'm going to need to add about 1.5 gallons of cold water. And then that's where the hydrometer comes in. We're going to take a original gravity reading on this. So let this finish boiling for just another minute. And then what I'm going to do is pull the hops out of there and dump that into another container where I can get it to go through my wort chiller. Show you how I do that. There's easier ways to do that. If this brew kettle had a spout on the side, then I could just dump the beer right out, or dump the wort right out of the side through a ball valve and through the wort chiller. So now I'll just take the beer wort without the hops and dump it right in here. And then I'm going to take some cold water, run it through the hops, also add that into there. So now I'm sparging off the hops. Need more volume of wort. And then that's going into the into this bucket with all the with the rest of the wort. And if you didn't have this this cooler, you could just put it into your fermentation bucket right from there. So now this is filled up. It shows I don't know if you can see that, but I'm right at the 5 gallon mark. So now I'm just going to pick this up, put that up here, goes through the wort chiller and into my fermentation vessel. Like I said, it could be a carboy or it could be a just a plastic bucket. If it had a plastic bucket, you would want to have the grommet on there and put a blow-off tube on there for primary fermentation for a few days, just in case you get too much foam and it wants to blow out. So now the wort is going to run out of this bucket through the wort chiller and into the carboy. Open this valve. Take that off. Open this valve. So there's beer running through now. Fill this up. And then put that through here and into the carboy. Now I'll take a gravity reading on this sample right here. So as that's running through the wort chiller and into the fermenter, take the original gravity. Brewer's friend said it should be 1.076. I think it's going to be a little higher than that. 1.082. 1.082. Yeah. Take a taste of that. Oh yeah, that should be pretty good once that's all done fermenting. So anyway, I've got it running through the wort chiller. comes out through here. Then what I'm going to do is add the yeast, which I have in here. Y yeast 1084. It's an Irish yeast. Like I said before, I captured this on a top crop, so I don't need to spend the extra money. So that's all done. I just disconnected this. Still got some flowing through here. We're right at 5 gallons. Got a little headspace on there. I don't know if it'll have much of a blowout or not, but we'll see. Got plenty of room for the yeast. Normally, I like to get it up to about this line here. About 5.5 gallons right in here. You know, anywhere from here to here. So I have 5.5 gallons. But it's looking good right now. So once that's done, there it's all done. I'll add the yeast and aerate it. So now the key to making any beer is sanitation. The carboy was sanitized. I use the Star San sanitizer. Just soak it in that. And that'll, it has a pH that'll pretty much kill pretty much any bacteria that's in there. I use Star San on on the inside of the wort chiller. So once it's done boiling, very important to have it sanitized. So went from the boil kettle, that was sanitized. Well, not the boil kettle, that sanitizes itself, but the bucket was sanitized. Flows through there, flows through the wort chiller, most important, sanitized. Comes out into a sanitized carboy. You could use a sanitized bucket, fermentation bucket. Anyway, everything has to be super, super clean. Very important, or you're going to make bad beer. So there we go. That's been sanitized. It's now cooled off. Now I'm going to add the yeast. Like I said, if you were adding liquid yeast, you just cut the, follow the instructions, cut it open, and go from there. So what I'm going to do is just pop this open. Must be very, very clean. So I'm going to use the alcohol. Make sure it's all clean. Clean this all up. Clean up the lip of this. I'm going to try to pour it in there without using the funnel. So I'll pop this open. A little bit of pressure. Shouldn't have had any really, but so what I'm going to do is dump out some of this beer. Like I said, sanitation, very important. So now I'll get that yeast off the bottom. There we go, it's busting loose now. I think we got it. And I'm going to wipe that lip off one more time with alcohol. Got all that yeast busted off of there. And now I'm going to try to dump it in there without making a mess. I think that worked. Then I'll just clean up the lip of that again and show you how it gets oxygenated. So now what I do is take the blow-off tube. I got the a stopper. Goes over the end of this. Push that in there. Then I have another stopper on the end, just so that it has enough weight. You'll see how that works here in a few minutes. But just so it has enough weight to stay down inside of a jar of sanitizer. So now, pretty simple. Takes a little work, but just shake it, hold the tube up so that air can flow in and out. And that'll aerate / oxygenate it. By the time you're sick and tired of shaking it up, shake it some more. If you had an oxygen tank, you just stick the tube down in there, let that run for about a minute maybe, have plenty of oxygen. So for now, I'm just going to do it like this. So I've got that all shaken up, kind of cleaned up my mess. So what I'm going to do now is put it in a quiet part of the house. It's going to maintain about a steady temperature of around 70, 72 degrees. And the blow-off tube is going to go into a into a container of water, and that way it will. Well, you'll see how that works, but it's going to just be a one-way valve, basically, into the water. Nothing can get back into the beer. So we're good to go now. We've got 5 gallons of American Stout ready to rock. So now this is all done. So I've got that shaken up, blow-off tube. Once that starts to ferment, it's going to get a lot of foam in there. It's going to come up, probably come through this tube and into this jar of water, mason jar of water. And if I'm not here to see, what might happen is the foam will come out of here. This will fill up this jar. The foam will come out of here. I put it in a pan so it doesn't end up on the carpet. So now all there is to do is just leave it alone. I'm going to leave this blow-off tube on there probably for about 3-4 days. We'll see what happens. You know, it's not written in stone, but just a few days with the blow-off tube until the fermentation subsides a little bit, and then put a regular fermentation lock on it. So now you just got to leave it alone. A lot of people want to mess with it and rush things, but just leave it alone. It's going to be fine all by itself. It's just going to sit here. I'm going to put a towel around it so it doesn't get any light striking it. We don't need skunky beer. And we're good to go. I'll check this out here tomorrow morning and see how it's fermenting. Hopefully that yeast I pitched in there is strong enough and gets it going real quick. We'll see what happens. Well, it's starting to ferment. It's been about 36 hours since we pitched the yeast. It's looking good. Got a little bit of headspace on there, so just to be sure, we have the blow-off tube attached. I'll check that when I get home from work. It may foam up enough where it's blowing out the top. And then once the krausen settles back down, I'll put a regular ferment lock on there. Probably would have started a little faster if I had used a yeast starter with that little jar of yeast. But if you're just starting out, you don't need to complicate things. Just use a package of dry yeast, dump it in there, or you could rehydrate the dry yeast, or just dump in a package of liquid yeast just by itself. It doesn't really need a yeast starter, but on a high gravity beer like this, it is recommended for a yeast starter. Anyway, things are looking good. It's doing everything it's supposed to. I'll check this when I get home from work and see how much, if anything, blows out of here. So we're at about 48 hours. You can see it's fermenting pretty good. Got a nice blow off going on here. So what I'm going to do is just Take that, and then I'm going to clean out the clean this up and get it back. You know, if it weren't in that pan, it'd be all over the carpet. So I'll get this cleaned up and put back over here, and just leave it alone. So I got the pan all cleaned out. This is the jar is switched out. Probably lost just over a pint of beer, which is fine. And it's fermenting away nicely. It's slowed down quite a bit, so I'll probably switch that out. Good boy. I'll probably switch it out and put a regular ferment lock on there tomorrow sometime. Maybe tomorrow after work or the day after. Give it another 24 hours or so. Should be good to go. Just leave it alone now for a while. I'll get that covered back up and let it do its thing. So I pulled off the blow-off tube and put on a new ferment lock. That's bubbling away real nicely. I'll just clean up this, and I'll leave this alone now for up to about 2 weeks. See what it's doing then. And then transfer it into a secondary fermenter. So it's at 2 weeks primary fermentation now. It's time to get this switched over, put it into a secondary, and take a hydrometer reading on there. Now, if you don't have a secondary fermenter, it's not really necessary. You will get a little bit better beer, a little cleaner, a little clearer if you do put it in primary, but it's not necessary. You could go from here to the bottling bucket and bottle it. So I'll get this down here. You can see where the tube is right down here. I'm going to siphon as much out of there as possible. Get that flowing. A little bit in here for a sample. As quietly as possible, you want to transfer it into here without splashing it or aerating it. If you had the means, normally I would fill that up with CO2 just to keep the air out of there, but it's not necessary. It's not going to oxidize the beer, just a gentle transfer like that. So you can see, got the hose down towards the bottom. It's about right here, but you see all the yeast and the trobe stuck to the bottom. Most of that settled out. The top, there's still some foam on there. It may or may not still be fermenting a little bit. We'll see. So you don't want to, you don't really want to bottle it before it's done fermenting. So we're going to take a gravity reading and check it out. Then here in another week or so, we'll take another reading, see if it dropped. But seems like it may be fermenting a little bit still. We'll see what's going on here. I'll take a gravity reading right now. About there. It's probably still fermenting. 1.032. It's a little high. 1.03. We're going to go with 1.034. I mean, it started out pretty high. I'll run the calculation, see what the alcohol level is, but it probably needs to finish up a little bit. 1.034. Oh yeah, that's really good. Oh. Smooth but bitter. It's got the little chocolatiness to it. Kind of coffee, but more chocolate. Oh yeah. The hops kind of come in and balance the thing out. That's going to be real good here in a few more weeks. So what the plan is, I'm going to leave it sit here in the secondary. If need be, it will finish up fermenting. It may be done. I don't know. I'm not going to worry about that. But get that into here, transfer it into secondary, leave it alone for a couple weeks at least, and then go ahead and bottle it. So that's almost done siphoning. It is sucking up a little bit of the yeast, but that's nothing to worry about. The majority, a huge majority of it's going to be left behind. And this will settle out in the bottom of this also. So it's no big deal if you suck up a little bit of yeast. Trying to get as much out as possible. Let's tilt that back a little bit more. And continue on. See the yeast running up that hose right there. Right below that little scuff mark on the glass. We're almost there. I'm going to call that good. Got most of it out. It's starting to get a little too much too much yeast, so we're at about 4.5 gallons probably in there. Looks pretty good so far. I'll just seal that up and put it away. Okay, so it's been another 2 weeks. Time to get this in the bottle. Let me show you what I got going on here. Got the bottle caps boiled, ready to go. Priming sugar, dissolved in 2 cups of water, along with I ended up using 3/4 of a cup of dextrose, the corn sugar. Got my bottles all sanitized, ready to go. Bottling bucket here is ready. That's all sanitized, good to go. And the beer, hoping it should be done this time. Last time when it was transferred, it was still fermenting when it was transferred. If I remember correctly, the gravity had dropped down to a 1.034. I'm expecting it to end up 1.026, maybe a little less would be good, but we'll see. Anyway, oh, and I got my peach beer. That's always essential to have something, be drinking some homebrews when you're making homebrew. So anyway, I'll get this transferred into the bottling bucket. Take the corn sugar, put that right in, and get the hose ready to go. I'll just get this popped off here and start the siphon. Put that right down the bottom. Let that siphon in there real quiet without aerating it. The spoon was sanitized, so what I'm going to do, once that's filled up, I'll just gently stir it around, make sure the corn sugar is stirred throughout, and start the bottling. So as that's siphoning in, take a gravity reading. And of course, get to taste it. A little better. It did ferment out a little bit more. It's at 1.028. 1.028. Should be good to go. I'll run the numbers through the brewer's friend and see what it comes up with. And get a taste here. Oh yeah, that works good. I like it. Ooh. Not really boozy, but until it's got some alcohol to it. Got that nice roasted flavor. You can taste the black malt and the roasted barley for sure. Smells delicious. Yeah, I like that a lot. Like I said, I'll run the numbers through the brewer's friend and see where we're at. So I was able to siphon most of that out of there. A little bit left, but it was starting to suck up some yeast, so don't need that. And like I said, just gently stir up the beer. Not much. Try not to add any oxygen to it. Try not to aerate it. Just real gently. Good enough. It probably does self-stir or self-mixes like that, but just to make sure, just a real gentle stir. That way you know all the bottling sugar is evenly distributed throughout the beer. So I'll get bottling it now. No, the bottling isn't so hard. It's just kind of time consuming. There we go. This is my homemade bottling bucket. They're all pretty similar if you buy one from the store. But you just start filling them up. And typically you're going to want to leave, I don't know if you can see that, about 1.5 inches of headspace on there. And just keep going like that till they're all full, and then I cap them. So I decided I will be sending this beer off to a competition just to get it scored and see what it does. Be kind of interesting to know. But anyway, I picked out 4 heavy-duty bottles, and I'm going to set those aside special for that competition. They're going to get 3 of those shipped off. So I'll get those filled up and put aside. Now on these bottles, you really want to pay attention to the fill level. It's got to be appropriate. These ones have a long neck on them. Longer skinny neck. Just gotta watch how far you fill it up. So those are all put away. They've been back here now for a week. I got them in this back room. It's about 68 degrees in here, going to condition. Kicker is they're not carbonated yet. It usually takes about 2 weeks to carbonate, but I decided it would be neat to bring them to put them in a homebrew competition. So I got that all boxed up along with pumpkin beer. I'm bringing that to the brew hut right now to go to a competition, and we'll see when that's done on how well that beer scored. I just thought it'd be neat. I'm not expecting to win anything, but here we go. So this beer's all done, ready to go. It was scored at that competition. It was in the 2018 Big Beers, Belgians, and Barley Wines. I have the cover sheet, the score sheet right here for that particular beer. Let's take a look at this. So now it's finally carbonated. Back then, it got shipped off to the competition, lacking carbonation, and I'm guessing that it may have been in cold storage that time for a while. As it's trying to carbonate, it was in cold storage. So anyway, now it's done. And it's pretty good. Here's the cover sheet. The final assigned score was 27. Not too bad. Going down here on the thing here, it's the scoring guide is your guide to understanding the meaning of your total score on the 50-point scale used on this score sheet. So you go down here to 27 points. Okay, a beer with 21 to 29 points is good. Okay, I can live with that. A satisfactory beer that is generally fits the style parameters, scores near the upper end of this range, may have only a few minor flaws. So mine was 27 out of 29, so minor flaws. Yeah, I can relate to that. May only have a few minor flaws or be slightly out of style. Yeah. And also may be lacking in balance or complexity. Scores near the lower end of this range tend to have more flaws and are likely to have stylistic inconsistencies as well. So we'll see what the first judge has to say. It's kind of hard to read the writing on these guys. They've been, drinking beer all day and are probably in a hurry. Okay. This one, Brian Wagner. He's a certified judge. Category 20, subcategory C. Russian Imperial Stout, bottle inspection, appropriate size, cap, fill level, label removal, etc. There's no points on that. Aroma, 6 out of 12 points. Oxidation, sherry, brown malt, something, but lacking prominent roast and something notes. Like I said, you can't always read the writing on these guys. Appearance, 2 out of 3. Aggressively poured and no head. Well, there's no surprise there. Something, initial pour, slight tan bubbles, dissipate quickly. I don't know. But anyway, I got 2 out of 3 on that. Flavor, 11 out of 20, not so great. Prominent brown malt character, minimal roast, needs more roast and bitterness to balance out age and sweetness. Okay, mouthfeel, 3 out of 5. It's okay. Lacking carbonation, yes. A moderate viscosity, nonetheless. There's something I don't know. Then I can't read the last couple words there. Overall impression, 6 out of 10. Something is past its prime. Aging is past its prime. Well, no, I don't believe you, because it was only in the bottle for a couple weeks. Not enough roast and bitterness, okay, to balance out sweetness and oxidation. Uncarbonated. I can live with that. He gave me 28 out of 50 points. Okay, this next judge, Ryan Chaliva. He's a recognized judge. I don't know what the difference between recognized and this guy wasn't recognized. This guy was certified. This guy is a recognized judge. Okay. Good fill. On bottle inspection, good fill. Okay. Aroma, 7 out of 12. Low levels of roast, chocolate, some light oxidized aroma. No dicetyl. Okay. Appearance, 2 out of 3. Deep, opaque black with a something head. Non-existent? I don't know. Flavor, 8 out of 20. Roast and chocolate come through after something due to the lack of carbonation. Very low bitterness levels this something and unbalanced. Something clean with some fruity esters and roast. Plum esters, chocolate, something, I don't know. Mouth, that was 8 out of 20. Mouthfeel is 3 out of 5. No head with something low carbonation. Something alcohol warmth. Okay, I don't know. Overall impression, 6 out of 10. Not a bad beer, but could use more hop bitterness and flavor to balance it out. The carbonation level improved as well. Be to carbonate with the appropriate amount of sugar and yeast. That just wasn't enough time. They didn't know that. But anyway, so lack of carbonation, maybe slightly oxidized on the nose. It does have a I really like it. It does, I kind of agree that it does need more dark malt. The hops are there, you can kind of tell the hops are there. It would fall out of category, not enough hops for a Russian Imperial Stout. Maybe a slight sherryness to it from oxidation, could be. Yeah, definitely could use more, maybe a little more chocolate malt in there on the way I did this one, but overall a very drinkable, not bad beer. 7.1% alcohol. That's not bad at all. I like that. And yeah, so I'm happy with that. It was it scored as good, the higher range of good. So hey, you know, for a beer I brewed, first time I brewed it, and this is the second time I brewed it, was over 30 years ago. Not bad. It's pretty easy to make a good, a good beer. You know, they get better with, you get away from the mostly extracts, and you can really dial in on how you're making your beer and what ingredients actually go into it. But for just starting out, just a beginner beer, you know, whether it's a kit or you just buy some ingredients and throw it in and brew it up like I did, not bad at all. I mean, I like it. So there you go. Learn how to brew. That brew wasn't bad at all. We'll see you next time. Inside Homebrewing.